It's happening. So, my 31st novel, A Mirror of Shadows, is almost ready for final edits, for my final self edits. So, I thought perfect time to sit down and just do a casual chat about what I'm looking for in those final edits, how I get myself and keep myself motivated for this final push, and how I overcome my fear of actually putting my work in the hands of my readers. So, let's dive in. Hey, everybody. So, we are on the floor of my office today, and I have to tell you, I have tried to record this video several times, and my brain is not fully engaged. But I wanted to have a video out this week. But I'm just going to tell you real quick kind of what's been going on in case I'm a little bit all over the place or my energy is a little bit scattered. So, one, I have a sick 6 year old, and we have been very lucky, like, knock on wood, that she has not been as sick over the past like 6 months as she was when she first started school pre-K. But kindergartners, they come home with lots of germs. Saturday night, Evie got sick and has been at my side ever since and is still has a fever. So that has been a little bit challenging on some busy work weeks. And second of all, and this is really the big one, Andrew has his next level spelling bee. So he is only 2 steps away from the National Scripts spelling bee. And we kind of have to just release the expectation at this point. Spelling bees are such luck, but also we've put in so many hours over the last really couple of months, especially over the last week and a half. And so I've got those mom nerves of like, it's all happening tomorrow. And also, Publish and Thrive is running, Follow Through Fix is running, and I've got a book to finish. So, we're going to talk a little bit about this because, first of all, a little bit of a chat. This might be a little disjointed, but hello, if you're new here, my name is Sarah. I am an indie author, a mom, a YouTuber, a course creator. There's a lot going on here, and I know that for many of you, you also have a lot of things other than your writing that you need to focus on. And sometimes it can be so difficult to prioritize ourselves, our own art, our own work, because there's always somebody who needs something from us or something else that feels like it should take priority. And, when I first started writing, I was super lucky that, first of all, I had a supportive partner, a husband who was willing to pay the bills for us, and I was able to write full time right from the start. And the expectation was someday I need to make money at this. And luckily I did. And a few years later, he was able to quit his job. But then as we welcomed one child and then the next child, and I started YouTube and I started teaching courses and have an Etsy shop and other things, it just became where my writing was consistently being pushed to the back burner. And don't get me wrong, I love everything about my life. Like, I love being a mom. I love being a course creator. I follow all my passions, but it can just be difficult to find time to balance it all. And it seems like because my writing is this more creative output, like I need more focus to be able to get it done. I need more quiet. I need more thinking time. It just keeps getting pushed to the side. But here in 2026, I have just drawn a line in the sand and said, okay, it's obviously not going to just happen on its own, where I'm just going to end up having months of free time. I don't think that's exactly what I was expecting to ever happen, but I just wasn't expecting over the last 4 years for the writing to get pushed so far to the side. And just emotionally, I need to be writing and I need to make it a priority, but it can sometimes be difficult to figure out how to carve out that time. So, that being said, I have just made a decision that I am going to finish this book and get it out here in the month of February. And this is going to sound a little bit crazy. However, I'll give you a little bit of backstory. Today is February 10th. Tomorrow, February 11th, we have my son's big day. So, it will be all about him tomorrow. But starting on Thursday, the 12th, I am going to massively prioritize getting this book finished. Now, I'm putting this book out February 27th. So if you do the math there, you'll start to see that I'm going to have about 2 weeks to completely polish and edit this book. That is going to sound a little bit crazy to anyone who traditionally publishes or anyone who takes a long time to edit books. But I will caveat that by saying that the majority of the 30 books that I have published so far, I have had a tight deadline on the edits. It takes me a really long time to think through what's going to happen in the plot of a book. It takes me a long time to write a first draft. But once I write the draft and I've edited it pretty well, like pretty simple edits, my books are pretty ready to go. It just needs that final polish. And that is something that if I can I describe it like portaling into the story. If I can give myself dedicated, uninterrupted, like 10-hour day focus times, I can really just immerse myself in the story and get the edits done. And I want to sort of it's like I feel like I need to apologize for that for some reason, and I have stayed away from talking about it too much because I feel like it's such a weird process to edit so quickly. But also on this channel, you guys know that I want to be, first of all, super honest about what my process is, but also to just show that not all writers have the same process. I think a lot of times we think there's a way that you should be to be a real writer. Like, oh, you have to put your book aside for 3 months or 6 months and give it time to breathe before you pick it back up. I've actually given this book a little bit of time just because we had the holidays and stuff, but typically I like to jump straight into edits because the edits and what it needs are most fresh to me when I've just finished the book. But I think that there's a lot of I don't know, misguided information about what you should do in order to be a professional writer. When the truth is that we're all different and we all have different processes. And I think that the more you can lean into your own process instead of feeling like you have to apologize for being a binge writer or for editing really fast or for writing really fast or for writing really slow. It's like the more you can just lean into being yourself and not judging yourself or others for their process, the better off you're going to be. So that's just kind of like the opening statement. But I have, like I said, for the most part, always put my edits on a tight deadline, and I prefer it. And I actually really like having it because when I give myself lots of time, I tend to lose the threads. And because I write fantasy or young adult, new adult fantasy, it's very important to me that those breadcrumbs across a series are really laid out in such a way that I'm leading the reader to believe certain things so that the twists land right. And I can set those up a lot better if I'm just looking at the entire 70,000 words or whatever that book happens to be in a short period of time. But it takes some pre-planning and some thinking ahead to make that really happen. So I figured since my brain is sort of half in a spelling bee, half in a sick 6-year-old, half in the Olympics, to be honest, and all these other things that have to be done, maybe it would be fun to just have a little chat about what I'm currently doing to prep myself for finishing this book in essentially the next 7 days. So I just have some things here on the floor with me. Many of you have seen this before, but I have this, it's like 11 by 17 blueprint paper. So I love this pad of paper. It has been my companion for the past couple of years. I highly recommend it if you are a visual learner or a visual person and you like to get an eagle eye view, like a manuscript that's 70,000, 100,000 words. You can think about it. You can know the story in your head like a movie, but really getting hold and being able to see how those scenes flow, how every little twist comes together, how each character is developing, when each magical moment is happening, or whatever it may be, each little reveal. Keeping that all inside your head can be extremely difficult, at least for me. I am a very visual person. So one of the biggest things that helps me is in as many places as possible, if I can visually lay out the story and all the scenes and all the character arcs, and I can see it all in one space in one single view, that helps me figure out the story and replay stuff. So this is pivotal for my editing. But throughout the plotting, the writing, and the editing, I will go through 5 to 10 of these sheets where I will basically create a grid for the story where each scene has its own box or its own space. And I will go through, and sometimes I will write it on index cards, which I didn't grab my index cards, but we all know what an index card is. I use it like 3x5 index cards. And I like the index cards because you can lay them all out on the floor and you can move them around, right? So you can take them and say, no, this scene really belongs better over here. And for me, I can do that once when I'm trying to plot. Then that's like theory of how the story will go. Then I write the story and it changes and shifts. And then I will make all new index cards, all new sheet. And third, I will also put it on the wall. So I have black paper taped onto the wall in my bedroom because I'm just covering the whole house with bookshelves and plotting and calendars. And that way I have multiple different views and like physical, tactile ways that I can move the story around. So I can either pace in front of the wall and be talking through it with George. I can be moving index cards around on the floor, or I can be sitting at my desk moving sticky notes or whatever it may be here. And sometimes I don't fill them out completely because it's like, oh, I've got it. Now I need to get to work. And sometimes I have to work through it multiple times. Like for the disappearance of Vanessa Shaw, I think I have this cute little Rilakkuma folder, and it has some of my color coding stuff in here. So I have just dot stickers, but I also have these kind of, I think they're labeling stickers. I write mostly multiple POV stories where you have sometime. I think this particular story has 4 points of view, but Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw had, I think, 12 points of view. Sometimes I have 8, sometimes I have 6. So I write a lot of multiple POV stories. So I like to color code them. So I will have stickers in various sizes. I will have sticky notes according to each of the color codes. So I have them here, and sometimes I will cut these down to smaller size. And I have markers and pens. So right now I have Tombow dual brush pens that I've been using. So it may sound excessive. If you don't like to see it visually, you might like a spreadsheet, or you might just use a bullet list in your planner, or maybe you don't need any of this stuff. And part of the reason that I like to share my process is not to say, oh, this is how you do it, but rather to say, this is how I do it. And if any of this gives you a permission slip to do it the way you do it, then all the better. Because I know I've got some crazy inside me when it comes to all this planning stuff. But I just learned early on that the more I can visually see, so here's an example of the disappearance of Vanessa Shaw. This was just one iteration of it. So each different color is a different point of view. And even up to the very last few scenes of edits, I was going through and moving sticky notes around and being like, oh, when I reveal this killer, I need to have planted this over here and done this over here. And I don't think I would be capable of doing it if I couldn't visually see it and move things around. And sometimes my brain works differently when I'm standing up and looking at it on the wall versus when I'm looking down at it. And I know that sounds odd, but I will say, even though I haven't been writing as fast over the last couple of years, I think my writing is getting better and better, I hope. And I think that part of that is because I'm learning to just lean into what works for me instead of apologizing for what works for me or feeling like my process is wrong. And just like, as many, if I have to make 50 of these to make it come together, I'm going to make 50 of them. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Or maybe I will, and then I'll just keep doing it. But what I am planning to do over the next few days is I am going to yet again go back to the manuscript, which is inside my Google Doc, and I am going to write out every scene that is currently in the current version of the manuscript onto a sticky note according to the POV. So my main heroine, it has the most scenes in this one, Bex. She's purple almost always. My heroines are purple. And then the love interest is blue, Slate. He has a couple of scenes of his own. And then I don't think I have my white, but there is also the villain. She also has a white sticky note. Those are the main POVs in this one. But in future books, I've got all the characters on the team. So I'm going to use the sticky notes, write out every scene that's currently there. I already have done some editing over the last couple of months since I wrote this book. So I wrote this book through most of 2025 and read it live as I was writing the second half of it on my YouTube channel over at Sarra Cannon. And so this book has been more edited than previous books of mine at this stage because I read it live. So I would write it and then edit it and have George listen to it, and we would go over it multiple times, and then I would read it for my fans. Since then, in mid-October when I finished the book, I have gone through a couple of rounds of edits. However, I do still have about 10,000 words from the beginning that are just completely like word vomit, rough draft onto the page. And that has to be extensively edited. So that first half of the book is going to take the longest piece to get it really set up because I'm adding all of that to the book. I anticipate that it will be about 75,000 words when it's completely done. It is currently 63 or 64,000 words from what I read before. And then I've added about 10,000 words, but that, like I said, is terrible words. Those need to be very edited at this point. But the 63 that's there is, I think, pretty good and pretty polished. It just needs to be better. I don't know how else to explain that. So, what I'll be doing over the next 7 days is I'm going to create that visual part of the story. I'm going to do it in multiple places. I will do it on this blueprint sheet. I will do it in sticky notes up on my wall, and I will do it on index cards. And the sticky notes will be very simple directions. So, it will just say Bex arrives in the shadow world, sees Slate for the first time, like very quick and dirty. Same goes for this pad of paper. This will just be pretty quick explanation. The index card is typically where I go a little bit deeper. So on the index card, I will put an overview of the scene. Bex falls through the portal and sees Slate for the first time. And then I will also put any bullet points of what's happening in that scene, any conflict of what's happening, any characters that show up, and then I will put the outcome of the scene. So I'll say what Bex's goal is, my main character, what's her goal in the scene, what information is she trying to get? Is she just trying to survive? Is she trying to learn something? Is she trying to escape? Like, what is it she's trying to accomplish? And then what's standing in her way? What's actually happening in the scene? And then I will put how the scene ends. Like she gets thrown in a cell and is told she'll have to compete tomorrow. So I don't have like a quick and dirty blurb for this book, by the way. It's just basically a story of sort of like a prison world in a gladiator style combat to the death. So that's a quick and dirty version of it. But there is a more formal blurb that will be coming. I'll explain to you a little bit more about what's going on. But the point is that I will have the story in those various forms. And then tonight, after, like in between study sessions with my son, I will create all of that stuff. Tomorrow will be all about him. Thursday, though, I will spend the whole morning working through any scenes, moving things around, making sure that the structure of the story is perfect. And this is always how I start these final edits. Even if I've done this a dozen times before, I always start my edits this way because it gives me that eagle eye, complete view of the story, and I can think through all the threads, all the missing pieces. So, what I'm looking for here as I do this is character motivation. Is it strong enough? Is every action that my character taking feeling believable and authentic to what that character has been through, to who we think they are, to what they're doing in the story? Everything needs to feel plausible. It needs to feel authentic to the character. It needs to feel real. And it needs to feel like a genuine reaction or a genuine action that story world would take or would happen there. So I'm looking for character motivation. I'm also looking for character growth and journey for mainly the main heroine of the story, Bex, but also for what we know so far about Slate. There's a lot I know about Slate as the author that the reader doesn't yet know. So I'm also thinking of it from that point of view of like, okay, when my reader meets him, what do I want them to believe about him, and do his actions feel true? And then what can I add in there that make them think, oh, there's more to this guy than meets the eye, kind of thing. I'm also following not just the character arc, the character motivation, but I'm also following obviously the plot line. I'm following the magical like world building of this entire world and how my character, what she knows about her magic and how her magic develops and grows. So what are her weaknesses in the beginning versus how does she grow and begin to embrace her own magic throughout the story. I'm also looking for any breadcrumbs and things that I know about the plot coming up in books 2 and 3 so that I can sprinkle those little clues throughout, a little bit of foreshadowing, a little bit of clues here and there. And so I'm looking for all of that. So I'm looking at the story on multiple levels, and I'll start out at that sort of big level. Then once I feel like all the puzzle pieces are in place, then I will start going line by line by line. Because the first act of the book is newly written, that's where I'll really start out kind of rewriting, polishing line by line, but I'll be looking at it a little more closely. Then when I get into the stuff that was already written and read before. I'm trying to think exactly how to explain it without being able to show it to you. So let me know if this lands or if you want to hear more about it, or if you have questions, we could do a Q&A or something on this. So I start out at that sort of eagle eye, high view level. Then I'll go to those sort of big chunks and say, okay, this needs to move here, this needs to move here, and I'll fix that stuff first. Like rewrite that scene, move this around, move those big things. When I feel like all the structure is there and all the pieces are in place, that's when I go in and I say line by line by line, let's get this going. And then I will tweak and strengthen. Where can I add more emotion? Where is this? Where have I explained this too much and I need to pull back a little bit? Where could I add a little bit more world building or a little bit more visual? And I'll work through it that way. Then once I've gotten all the way through, the structure is there, I've polished as much as I can, then I will actually go through and sort of reset my brain and think of it, okay, if I'm a brand new reader who's never read this author before, am I experiencing the story the way that Sarra intended me to experience the story? And a lot of time for that final edit pass, I will have something like natural readers or some kind of text to speech read it out loud to me like I'm listening to an audiobook so that I can sort of experience it without reading it. That way I will catch more places where I need more emotion, things that didn't quite make sense, words that are too close together, just different things like missing things. Oh, that it didn't flow correctly, those kind of things. So all of that is sort of the process. And then when I'm done with all of that, it will go to my beta readers. My husband's home with pizza, so I got to go, but it will go off to my beta readers. And in fact, it will start going to my beta readers. I talked about this in my Google Docs video most recently, so I will link that for you down below. But I will actually start sending that to them when I'm done with Act 1. So about the first 15 to 20,000 words, when I'm done with that, I will send the doc or share my doc with them. And then they will go ahead and be going through it with me as I'm working on Act 2. That way we're always working in tandem and they're a little bit behind me. And then once the beta readers are done, I'll go through the whole thing again with all of their comments, and then it will go off to my final proofreader. And once that is all complete, then the book will be formatted and published everywhere. I publish wide, so I'll be at Amazon, Google Play, Apple, Barnes & Noble, etc. I'm not sure if I will have time to do a pre-order. I'm not sure that I will have time to do much launch activity at all in terms of promotion. So I'm honestly just focused this year on let's get the books out and then we can start promoting them later. And I'm hoping to take you guys on that journey with me. It's all about progress, not perfection. If I waited for all the perfect marketing, all the perfection of the story has to be perfect, I have to have the perfect mailing list, Facebook ads. I have to have a box that I'm going to send out to ARC readers. There's a lot of authors who do all of that stuff, and I would love to do more of that myself. But right now, where I am and the time I have available, I just want to focus on making the book as great as it can be. And then we'll figure out marketing after. And I'm hoping that you guys are here along for the ride. All right. I know this is a little bit disjointed, but hopefully you got a little bit of something out of it. And if you want to see more of my editing process or you want to hear more about how I'm preparing for this launch, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I am also going to share a few videos coming up about my way that I'm planning to create more and really refill my well a lot more this year, and some of my nerves about getting to publish again in this story world that I haven't published in 4 years. So I hope you're around for that. Thank you guys so much for all your support and wish us luck on the spelling bee. I'll keep you guys updated on how it goes, and I will see you all in my next video. All right, bye.